I wanted to share a story, my best Baba story that I have. Basically, it's how I found out how I decided for myself that one, God exists, and two, Meher Baba is God. Because I didn't believe him. I was like, this is a pretty big, you're really giving me, how am I supposed to believe that, my friend? That's a lot for me to swallow. I was in college, and so I said to Baba, because he was new to me, I didn't really know much about him, but I was fascinated by him, and I wanted to dive into the Meher Baba rabbit hole that was stretched out before me. But this whole God stuff, I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't believe in God. I have no reason to believe in God. Philosophically, intellectually, it's like, I don't understand what the point is. So I said, you gotta prove it to me if you want me to follow you, or, I'm just gonna go on my merry way and no skin off my back. I got stuff to do. I'm a young man in college. Like, I don't need all this God stuff. I'll just keep being a absurdist, existentialist, philosopher person. Anyway, so I said, give me a sign, please. And for a little while, for the first 12 hours, the rest of the day, nothing happened. I didn't get a sign. And then I kind of forgot about it by the next day, or, I thought, well, maybe it'll still show up, but I don't think so. And so that was a Sunday that I asked for a sign. And the next day, on Monday, I was at my job. I had gone to classes, and I went to the billing office, which is where I worked, on campus, where we went through student accounts and things like that. So I'm dealing with accounts and different names all day. And I'm going through the M section in the back of some accounts. I'm looking for some name like Mitchell or Michaels or something like that. And I spot this name that looks quite familiar. And it said MEHRBABA was the last name. I sat there staring at this paper for 10 minutes until a coworker came in, and I said, oh my God, I'm supposed to be working, It was probably the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me in terms of divine, coincidences. This one, I dare you to try to disprove, on what possible planet, physical system do things like this happen in a natural way? This was supernatural. I could not believe it. It was so fantastical, such a clear, obvious sign. I thought it would be a little more subtle than that. Just putting your name, oh my God, I almost couldn't believe it. It was too much. It just short-circuited my logical brain, and the philosopher in me, was going, okay, did this paper exist yesterday? Did it exist 10 years ago? Is this person, this Meher Baba person, even real, this student file? And I took a picture of the paper, so I have it proof. And his first name was Hooman, Hooman, just making it even crazier. God in human form, the God-man, Hooman Meher Baba. So on that day, and that moment, I found out God exists and Meher Baba is God. That was a turning point for me where I was like, okay, this is my guy. This guy is different from the other people I've read about, and now I'm all ears to whatever else you have to say. So I reached out to this Hooman Meher Baba person because I thought, is this person real? So I emailed him because his email address was on this, in his file, and I sort of briefly explained the situation, and I was like, I just want to know if you're a real person. Imagine getting an email from someone like, hello, I worship this, person, and or I'm trying to worship him, but I needed proof, and you came up at my job, and are you real? It's just like, wow. He never emailed me back, probably because he doesn't exist, but in his file, I also thought it was interesting that he he never set foot on the campus as far as we can tell. Like, he never actually went to school here. He was accepted. He signed up for one class, which was a computer science class. That's all it told me. He registered for the class one day, then exactly 7 days later, he drops the class. He was never charged any money. There were no transactions, totally clean, just a 7-day thing. And that blew me away too. And then, yeah, Meher Baba is God. Thank you for listening.
This is a poem I wrote in India in 2017 for Meher's birthday. It's called Letter to Meher. Let me remember you, dear Meher, in your great beauty. Show me what purity looks like. Let me know from you that sweetness which owes nothing to sugarcane or roses. Let me learn from you the discipline which gives up everything without a second thought. Let me stand with you again, side by side, as if we were family. Let us sit together and weave brooches from his hair. Let us make paper flowers to garland his photograph and wash his clothes in water from the highest mountain. Let me never forget my good fortune in knowing him more closely through knowing you. Let me not forget your laughter or your tears. Dearest Meher, let me learn from you the love he cannot resist, the love this world cannot imagine, the love even God cannot do without.
Jai Baba, everyone. Lots of love to you all out there, and especially with this song to those of you in New York. We have rain in the background, and as always, birds here on Meher Road in Australia. Jai Baba. You had a look in your eye this morning when I raised my rusty dull bones to greet you, surrounded by the wonder, surrounded by the pain of this swirling world, where we tumble again from our towers of knowing, blindsided, tear-stained, and now just one of us here with nothing to say. I wonder if the sparrow was hoping for a better song, or if this little light maybe doesn't really fly. Well, you've got the answers, and I got mud in my eye. Oh, you've got the answers, and lit by the sunlight, you glance as you stride by. You had a look in your eye this morning as voices and headlines read out the numbers, broken by their violence, yet these flowers so vibrant. I turn left then right, because both of them call me. Our tower has crumbled, that our hearts are exalted, and now just one heart is here with nothing to say. I wonder if that sparrow was hoping for a better song, and if this little light maybe doesn't really fly. When you've got the answers and I got love in my eyes. Ooh, yeah, you've got the answers, and lit by the sunlight you glance with love as you slide by. Oh, our hearts exalted, but lit by the sunlight we breathe your love as you glide by. Oh, I wonder if that sparrow was hoping for a better song, and if this little life maybe doesn't really fly. Well, you've got the answers, and lit by the sunlight, our raw hearts exalted, and lit by your sunlight, we breathe your love as you stride by.
This guzzle is from In Dust I Sing. I would never have troubled about love if love had not troubled me. I would never be on this raft if I had not been chucked into the sea. Anyone who enters upon this trackless path of his own accord should be shut up in an asylum with hard labour to earn his board. When God loves a man, he sets about arranging his ruin, puts a great pot on the fire for him snugly to stew in. Then he fishes him out and cools him with a sideways glance that says, "Maybe you'll become my lover. There is just a chance." The poor fish, he is now neither man, beast, nor fowl, thinks that the world's end has come and sets up an awful yowl. This is the beginning of his love song, a clearing of his throat. After many lifetimes of attempts, he strikes the right note. Now, it is all plain sailing, with only storms and shipwrecks, for the sake of diversion and other sundry aspects. J. Barber.
I look at the year 1894, then I thought, this is a curious thing. The principle of the electric motor had been developed theoretically in the 19th century, and they had done a few prototypical projects with generation of electrical energy and consumption to move like a local train system here and there, but nothing big. But in 1894, the production of the electric motor really began. And because of that, The elevator was invented that year. Motion pictures were invented in 1894. Many interesting things were invented around that time, including a simple thing like the zipper, which is a very simple device which has saved God. How could you calculate the time it has saved humanity? It's true. But what happens then is human beings who are used to being just involved in these tedious tasks, suddenly they're happening more quickly and efficiently, and their minds are changing. The direction of the thinking is starting to change. At first, it's leisure and play, but then eventually there's deeper thought happening. They can start reading philosophers and different things. Things are happening now. The most significant, probably, invention regarding Meher Baba's advent in 1894, not invention, but finally it really began, was the production of the automobile in Indiana. Very symbolic for this advent, which also then had to do with the consumption of what's considered the stored energy of the planet in the form of hydrocarbon-driven vehicles and other things. Even the name is like a spiritual metaphor for the internal combustion engine. It's also contributed to now mass pollution of the planet. When Paul Brunton interviewed Baba at the cave at Mehrabad in 1930, Baba just frankly told him, you see all this advancement in mass communication, mass transportation, in all these very efficient ways of living physically in the world. He says it's all due to the fact that it is time for the Christ to manifest on earth. It is all making the possibility more viable for me to give my message to humanity. Baba's life itself, we can't really even begin to get into that on the subject. We focused on those things through the years many times. His keeping silence, it was obvious to me that he had to keep silence in this advent of noise. It was the only solution. But all the work, all the different phases of work, all integrated in seclusions, the burden of suffering, on and on it went. Baba said at one time, do your best to do nothing at all. The population will increase. Yeah. And he mentioned that all these so many souls from other planets would now be taking birth on Earth because they were being given the opportunity to have a birth on Earth during the time of the Advent. That doesn't mean they're aware. Totally unaware. It has nothing to do with... The thing to remember is our subjective awareness plays very little part in the game. We're like toddlers being led. We just go. Where Daddy brings us, we just go there. All of these millions and upon millions of souls from other planets who take the opportunity to have a birth, they're given the opportunity to have a birth on Earth during this Advent. This is the reason why the population had to grow. There's another important aspect to that, and that is that the intensification of interaction happens. And when you add that with this element of mass transportation, mass communication, what the result is that these ancient karmic connections and patterns from ages are suddenly rapidly being resolved. Even if any one of us, let's say on a subtle level, we look at the news, we see people starving and suffering in Yemen and Syria, and we think, poor people suffering, what can we do about it? At least this is happening and we can feel empathy. It's more than humanity has experienced in the past. Bob would say later years of Guru Prasad especially. Now, he said, now I will make the world very close. Isn't it amazing that Meher Baba, for so many years, used an alphabet board to communicate, and now there's so many people on earth have their own little alphabet board they're communicating with? The archetypal perfect human being, and this is the result of it. And he even mentioned it himself, you know, he said, soon everybody will have their own phone and just put it in their pocket. Oh, people would say, how could that be? That must be centuries away. No. Communicate, he said, in 1 second you communicate with anybody around the world. All of this is to resolve those ancient karmic patterns, connections that happen, that take so many ages to develop, now are being quickened, resolved quickly. It's quite an amazing thing. Going back to this explanation about cycles, Baba gave the final declaration at Mehrabad on September 30th, 1954. There were about 1,000 men present who had been invited. This is only one paragraph of, to me, a very beautiful message that is often overlooked. My next advent, after I drop this body, will be after 700 years. And that will mark the end and the beginning of a cycle of cycles. All cycles of time and illusion end and begin after 700 to 1400 years. There have been and will be millions and billions of such cycles in a cycle of cycles. Yes. There have been, he's talking about avataric cycles now, there have been and will be millions and billions of such cycles in a cycle of cycles. Thus, there is no end to illusion, which always remains illusion. Baba once said that a big cycle was about 12 billion years or so.
Did you say B with a B?
B, 12 billion years or so, a cycle of cycles, something like that. Going back to the explanation that everything is only spiritually advancing for the most part on this planet, in the true sense. So all the people who take birth here, whether they realize it or not, are extremely fortunate. How long does it take just to get that opportunity? And then how about a handful of us who are obsessed with keeping company with the Ancient One? It is like how Baba often reminded the people who were around him, the handful of people, he would say, you all have no idea how fortunate you are. There's an interesting correlation and connection between every Advent. Bob explained it like this. In every Advent, the avatar is the writer, producer, and director of the next Advent. He is also the main actor in the production that was written, produced, and directed by the previous avatar. And so this connection that the avatar has with his cycles goes on and on like that. So he is the eternally responsible only Son of God for creation. It goes on like that. In the interim, the 5 perfect masters of each perfect age, and Baba explained that there are 11 perfect ages between avataric advents. They execute the divine plan. And the divine plan has within it the manifestation of the avatar's advent, which is usually after that period of grace, as Bob explained, that happens immediately after he drops his body. So the significance of the avatar's advent every time, the most significant date is that date when he drops his body. That's why Amar Tithi is so big to us, because that's when his work gets released. After the final declaration in 1954, the following years, Baba put great stress on what seemed to be this enigmatic subject. My humiliation, the breaking of my silence, my glorification, and my manifestation. That would happen in that order. At the same time, he explained that the avatar does his work, all of his work, while he is in his physical form. And when he drops his physical form, that work is released. And that new cycle really begins then. That is, the execution of the divine plan begins from the work he has accomplished. So it is the great milestone. What is this thing, manifestation? What do we really care about? Manifestation, what does that mean? Well, Baba said it's important for the world to know him personally, to reap the benefit of his presence. Otherwise, if it were just us, we'd say, we're fine as it is, thank you. Yet we're kind of in this conflict, because Baba said, now's the time to tell the world I am God in human form, yet we like it just fine like it is. On the end of July, Baba said, my work is completed 100% to my satisfaction. Yet he continued his strenuous seclusion work, hammering his fist. As his body, his health became worse and worse, and eventually dropped his body 6 months later. So Baba explained it to them like this. He says, I am like a commander on a battlefield, mortally wounded. I know that death is inevitable, but as I'm stumbling to my death, I see some ants on the ground before me. And out of compassion for the ants, I struggle a few more steps before I fall. Ants? What are these ants? So Erich explained, these ants are truth-loving humanity. People who didn't necessarily have some spiritual connection with some advanced persons, maybe not even the avatar, nothing like that, but within them, they had a yearning for truth and out of compassion for them, this extra bit. The result in his work will be an extension of this period between the time he drops his body and the actual manifestation, which he says will happen after a period of great world conflagration, great suffering.
Which is happening now.
It's only beginning, according to what Baba has described. And he said, I won't break my silence of my own accord, I will be forced to. And that event happened a few days before Baba dropped his body, according to Erich. He won't say that much, but okay. According to Baba's statements, it's clear to me why Baba has said all the work he has done was accomplished in his physical lifetime. And that last thing of breaking his silence, it was not a clearing of his throat. He really made the sound. The sound, as he indicated, that was there. Francis was also there in the room.
Was it like an om?
It wasn't om, it was a very loud Baba didn't say om, he said it's the sound that he would be forced to make. It happened. We're just saying, he's the archetypal perfect human being with eternal responsibility for creation. And according to his explanations, we're just putting these things together. The Mandali never talked much about these subjects, by the way. They had us focus on his divine humanity, because the real thing is about love. But I don't profess to get into that. This is not a meeting of poetry, it's a meeting of fascinating things, but the purpose of all of this is to help us put this together. and have a big picture, because ultimately what it all means is that we have a way of remembering him that is, it is really relevant, really relevant.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, if the Mandalay were saying to you and other people that Baba made that sound,
Mm-hmm.
does that equate with his breaking his silence?
It does, except here's the issue. We want to assess all of this according to the upside down paradigm where our time and space is real, so where's what's happening? Must be all just a lie. It is his compassion, as he said, that the effect of that would not be instant. So I refer to this period now as a period of compassionate preparation. To qualify that explanation, I say the issue is this. These things cannot be assessed in our upside down paradigm. This is illusion. To apply plastic time and space to reality, you're going to miss the point. It is this period of compassionate preparation that is helping individuals gradually to make a connection. And all of us know, first of all, it's not about saving our asses. It's about finding that essential truth. That's what his work is, freeing us from falseness. No one can come to Meher Baba through persuasion, coercion. There's nothing to convert to. There must be an individual subjective experience of inspiration. That is his work. It's not ours. I tell people it's like this, you know, the intellectual mind is like a ball and chain that the heart has to drag around. And if all of these things can make that ball and chain a little lighter and easier to drag around, then fine. That will help us. This manifestation happens usually in the second, third perfect age after the avatar drops his body. As Bob explained, those first 2 cycles, perfect ages, the perfect masters stay hidden because it's the time of the avatar, but it's an important thing that happens immediately. You'll see the pattern repeats itself. After the avatar drops his body, there's a period of catharsis, suffering that happens, often to the followers of the avatar. That process is how they get cleaned, by becoming, in the worst case, martyrs for the cause. That's how they get cleaned. Baba himself said the greatness of Islam was not in the Kaaba, it was in Karbala, where the family of Muhammad died as martyrs, because in that process they were cleaned. But after that happens, then suddenly there's a flowering of the faith. It's a catharsis that you can see it in the recorded histories. And Bob himself would talk about the time after he dropped his body that would be a time of great suffering before he broke his silence. And what we're talking about is the effect of the breaking of his silence, because it's all about sanskaras. There has to be a tremendous breakdown of sanskaras in order, the truth is always there, but the truth is silent behind the noise, the noise of illusion. And until the falseness is deconstructed or diminishes to a certain extent, that can't be heard. It's impossible. So as Baba said, the world I must speak my word to the world must feel it. Feel. It has to be felt. That means it's not a convincing through literature. There's no book per se that is going to convince people like that.
So everything we're saying, like the sped upness of life.
It will, and it must happen. All of this intensification is crucial to create the environment that will lead to the final catastrophic destruction of falseness. To the level, now Baba would use the term more than once, that 3/4 of the world will be destroyed. And although he explained it down a little bit in 1954 after this, he also told them that everything he said was true. He's God, and everything he said was true. Don't think that he was just... Those 4 messages given from 54 through 55 are all interrelated. That's a whole nother subject we could easily spend an hour on, so we won't get into that. Only to say that he did say it would happen. It will happen. Things are, on all fronts, things are becoming tenuous on all fronts. It will reach a peak, and Baba had said that only when things reach a point of absolute deadlock in the world, and the whole world cries out, enough, will I be forced to break my silence. So that process is going on. But now, the final point I want to bring up today is because the relevance of his circle, every time the avatar comes, you know, he has a circle. And it's actually 10 circles of 12, plus the 2 appendages, who are closely related to the first circle. The first circle, Baba said, must get realization within that period. And he said that period of grace lasts 100 years if he comes back in a short cycle, or 200 years, like in the case of Muhammad, when he would come back in a long cycle. It's about that. It's irrelevant to the span between cycles, because that span between avataric cycles makes up the 11 perfect ages. And it's done according to the perfect ages. So the first perfect age after Baba, we can say, is done. Mathematically speaking, it should be done, and we should be in the middle of the second perfect age. But within another 50 years, according to Baba's explanation, all of those first circle members must be realized. So we know Mara's not coming back. Gustaji went. He was the one that Baba mentioned in the 20s that would get realization before he himself dropped his body. And Gustaji died in 57. Baba said he's finished, got realization. Mara won't be coming back, but he said Mani and Erich would come back one more time. Sava Kotwal said Padri and Pendu would come back as perfect masters, to be perfect masters. So these are the people, they must come back within another 50 years and take their duty as assigned to them in the divine plan to execute that duty. And I always thought, who would be more suitable to execute the manifestation of the avatar of this age than his circle people? And it just makes perfect sense. It most likely is like that every time.
Will they look the same?
They will appear the same, Baba had said, not in God Speaks, but it's another explanation he gave. They will appear the same as when they first entered the circle, but we don't know what that was and how they looked. We don't, Baba didn't reveal all of that stuff. This is something, every time the avatar comes, part of his work is to prepare future circles. And the people of the 10 circles must be out of the game by the next Advent. Must be totally out of the game. Out of the game means realization. And I'll just make a conjecture here. Let's say, Baba said Baba Jan in her previous life was Rabia of Basra, who was six-plane saint. But she lived centuries before. It's possible that Rabia of Basra was a member of one of the succeeding circles of the avatar. And her final role as perfect master was to unveil the next avatar. It's possible. See, just explaining this as a hypothetical so that we can kind of get an idea of how this is an ongoing connection. It's all an ongoing connection. And it is all the game of the one, ancient one. That's it. I have enough time for today. Thank you for coming. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a
All
question.
again, all his answers, we never got to. I forgot what the question
So these people from other planets, although there is no need to take birth on other planets after they have achieved a birth on Earth, that doesn't mean they won't. How about all the other souls they're connected to? How do they get helped? And Baba used this term, inner links. Beautiful term, inner links. We're all connected. You'll go, my work will go on by the inner links you all have. Inner links. It's how his work through the circle happens. They're links to succeeding circles and people everywhere. From there, it spreads out into the whole universe. So the universe has to stay, it's not compartmentalized per se, it is connected, very connected. Final declaration, I'll see if I can just remember that particular paragraph. Unity in diversity, this is a really good subject for today too. Unity in diversity can be made to be felt only by touching the very core of the heart. This is the work for which I have come. I have come to sow the seed of love in your hearts, so that in spite of the superficial diversity which your lives in illusion must experience and endure, the feeling of oneness through love will be brought about amongst all sects, religions, faiths in the world. Something like that, paraphrasing. Beautiful.
perfect our political climate because we'll know that this is happening
It's great, Katha.
when Trump's heart is open.
All of these people are just, no, not necessarily. His job is to be a catalyst for catharsis. And all of these people, as Bob explained, are just puppets in the hands of the perfect masters. That's all they are. It takes millions of births to line up a Donald Trump, somebody like that, a Hitler, Baba had said. These people who take roles, they have to be perfectly prepared for these things. It has nothing to do with our apparent moral judgment, because in the end, they play a specific role in the divine plan, which is much broader than can be assessed by morality. So we don't know. We don't know. Pardon? Yes. Yes. Remember again, the universal message. All this world chaos and confusion was inevitable. Can
I say it?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. Okay. That's one. All this world confusion and chaos was inevitable, and no one is to blame. What had to happen has happened. When what has to happen will happen. There was and is no way out except my coming in your midst. I came because I had to come. I am the Ancient One.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you quickly say this one more time. So you said that all 10 of the circles
First,
have to be realized out of the game by the time of the next Advent. Right.
It is what's triggering the manifestation. The ramifications of the first circle's realization go rapidly through the universe. All the succeeding circles and all the spiritual hierarchy and all of that. It happens very, spiritually speaking, it happens very rapidly then. When Mani was there with us, and she would often say, Baba said, I have one more lifetime as a man. We would say, oh, isn't that sweet? Not thinking, what? First of all, if you're Mani Esarani, what's going to be better than that? And considering we never thought 84 lakhs lifetimes and all of that. Those in those days, it was just they were so natural and human. And once, when Money came into the office, was standing by Debbie's desk, and again she repeated this thing. Hey, Bob said I had to live one more lifetime as a man, and Erich has to come back as a woman. Yeah, so that's it. Amazing.
Erich said he wanted to come back.
Yes.
Why? Tell him.
So,
Yeah, tell us why.
well, this is what Erich said. Once sitting in the office with him, he said, anyhow, I have to come back one more time as a woman. I said, Erich, why would you want to do that? Yeah. He had said other funny things, in the past, like his dry wit. He would say, people would say, the Mandli, how fortunate they are, adventures with Baba and all that, but really speaking, we were only the servants of the women. So Erich had this comment, anyhow, I have to come back one more time as a woman. I said, Erich, why would you want to do such a thing? He says, I want to know what it feels like to love him.
सांस भी लो तो मेरे लबों पे नाम तेरा ही आता है हर पल मेरी आँखों में प्यार तेरा लहराता हर पल मेरी आँखों में प्यार तेरा लहराता है मैंने तुझे बड़ी देर में जाना तू है मेरा ख्वाब सुहाना मैंने तुझे बड़ी देर में जाना तू है मेरा ख्वाब सुहाना ख्वाब सुहाना ख्वाब हकीकत बन जाए तो ख्वाब हकीकत बन जाए तो दिल को सुकून मिल जाता है हर पल मेरी आँखों में प्यार तेरा लहराता है दूर हूँ मैं दुनिया के गम से ये सब कुछ है तेरे करम से दूर हूँ मैं दुनिया के गम से ये सब कुछ है तेरे करम से तेरे करम से हर एक मौसम मेरे दिल में प्यार के रंग सजाता है हर पल मेरी आँखों में प्यार तेरा लहराता है हर पल मेरी आँखों में प्यार तेरा लहराता है दिल में तू आबाद है ऐसे फूल बदन में खुशबू जैसे दिल में तू आबाद है ऐसे फूल बदन में खुशबू जैसे खुशबू जैसे तोड़ नहीं सकता जो कोई, तोड़ नहीं सकता जो कोई, तेरा मेरा वो नाता है, हर पल मेरी आँखों में प्यार तेरा लहराता है। सांस भी लो तो मेरे लबों पे नाम तेरा ही आता है, हर पल मेरी आँखों में प्यार तेरा लहराता है, प्यार तेरा लहराता है, प्यार तेरा लहराता है।
Baba, it's your hands I love the most. Those finely chiseled fingers, cascading torrents of eloquence. Fervent fingers, bright birds swinging and dancing through the tangled jungles of our ignorance. Your hands so handsome in repose, or strong fingers all aglow, massaging the pain of the world, or the rivers of grace gliding easily through your open palms into the thirsty hearts of your lovers. The butterfly of my soul alights on your finger, delights in your perfect stillness, lingers. You dip your hands into a river, lift them out, and 1,000 new universes overflow your cupped palms, start to live. And in a high-rise apartment in some distant city, someone is suddenly able to forgive. It's our hands that make our humanity. Our fingers, the visible tendrils of our desiring, shaping the world into our likeness. But your hands, God's laughter, your hands, golden ladles pouring from the bottomless well of infinity. And your hands gather the dumb and scattered stars into twisting spirals of intelligence. He's got the whole wide universe in his hands. He's got our own little Milky Way in his hands. He's got you and me, brother, sister, in his hands. He's got in your fingers, your star-kissed fingers, untwist the closed jars of our hearts. The butterfly of my heart alights on your finger, delights in your perfect stillness, lingers. So much of your body was broken, but never your hands. Light streams through your fingertips. Love dances in your palms. The three rings you wear: knowledge, power, bliss. Knowledge, power, bliss. Knowledge, power, bliss. In this crazy life, if there's one thing I'm sure of, it's this. The butterfly of my soul alights on your finger, delights in your perfect stillness, and lingers.
Jai Baba! Here's a song I wrote after leaving Australia, Avatar's Abode specifically, and being filled with the wonderful joy of the music and community and art at your home. And so we wanted to bring that to our home. And here it is. From Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Meher Baba, you are the friend divine.
Meher Baba, in your love we shine.
Meher Baba, you've come to set us free.
In your new life we can live eternally.
Meher, Meher, Meher Baba. Meher, Meher, Meher Baba. Meher, Meher, Meher Baba. Meher, Meher, Meher Baba. We shall hold your daman as tightly as we can. You are our beloved, you are really the God-man. You've come to awaken us all from this dream. For most things we see are not as they seem. For most things we see are not as they seem. Meher Baba, may our hearts become pure,
Free from the draw of illusions, Lord.
Meher, your name we repeat night and day, remembering you as you've taught us to pray. Meher, Meher, Meher Baba. Meher, Meher, Meher Baba. Meher, Meher, Meher Baba. Meher, Meher, Meher Baba. We shall hold your daman as tightly as we can. You are our beloved, you are really the God-man. You've come to awaken us all from this dream. For most things we see are not as they seem. For most things we see are not as they seem. Meher the seed of love you bring.
Meher Baba, in your love we sing.
Meher, to please you, we'll do as we must. We'll keep your wish until we become dust. Meher, Meher, Meher Baba. Meher, Meher, Meher Baba. Meher, Meher, Meher Baba. Meher, Meher, Meher Baba. We shall hold your daman as tightly as we can. You are our beloved, you are really the God-man. You've come to awaken us all from this dream. For most things we see are not as they seem. For most things we see are not as they seem. For most things we see are not as they seem.
Jai Baba, good day now.
Good night.